Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for joining our diagnostic training session today. And what you're about to see is a pre-recorded training session we did over in the United States. But be assured that a lot of the material that we cover is really applicable to any automotive application. So just be aware that yes, it is a lot of North American vehicles, but they will apply a lot of the same principles apply over in the UK as well. Now, if you do have any questions, if you're watching this during the premiere, you can just leave it in the chat. We'll be monitoring live chat. If you're watching this after the premiere, then just feel free to leave a comment underneath the video and we'll get to those as we can as well. So my name is Jason Gabrenas. I'm one of Snap-on's diagnostic technical trainers. I've been in the training department since 2013, traveling around North America, helping techs and shop owners get the most out of their diagnostic equipment. Before I did that, it was a couple years as a diagnostic sales rep at Snap-on, so I had 30 different franchisees I worked with, as well as the shops that they serviced, in order to help everyone get the most out of their diagnostic needs. Then before I did that, it was 8 years at Subaru. So I worked in a dealership, and over time, I guess, just became the default diag guy in the shop. So I always ended up having the drivability problems, the intermittent problems, the weird wiring problems that would show up on those cars. And that's really where I cut my diagnostic teeth, was trying to figure out all those weird head scratcher type cars that would come into my bed. Then before that, a bunch of other miscellaneous wrenching jobs. Been a little over 25 years under hood experience for me. So our topic at hand today is maintenance functions. And we know with modern vehicles, if you've worked on a modern vehicle anytime in the last 10 years, you know that you need a scan tool to do a lot of different things on a vehicle, up to and including maintenance. Things like changing oil, because I need to reset my oil reminder. Put the parking brake into service mode so I can change the pads. Battery reset after I replace a battery. TPMS when I rotate the tires. Even just rotating the tires, we need to do a TPMS reset. Or DPF regen, right? On a diesel vehicle, there's tons of those out there, and they have the diesel particulate filters, and those need to be cleaned out, reset, so to say, and more. Way more than just what's shown here, but we really need a scan tool for just about anything. So let's start with oil change functions. And not only do we need to use a scan tool to do the oil change after the oil change anyways to reset, we also would need good information. We need to have good current information. And another thing that Snap-on scan tools have is the quick lookups menu. It's going to be on the main menu. As long as you're hooked up to Wi-Fi and you have current software, you'll be able to get whatever the current information is for oil changes and tires. Your maintenance stuff. So let's look at an example here of why might I need up-to-date information like right now, right away. So we got two different pickups right here, look pretty much the same. One's a 2013 with a 5.3 liter, and the other one's a 2014 with a 5.3 liter. Same engine, pretty much. But the 2013 takes 6 quarts of 5W30, and the 2014 takes 8.5 quarts of 0W20. Now that's a decent amount of difference between the oil, and if I'm working on that 14 and I think it's a 13, or I don't realize that they have changed between years because maybe I don't have a current book. We all know the book that hangs off of the oil rack there, right? So maybe I don't have the current information. I might overfill it, I might underfill it, depending on which way we went, and we might use the wrong type of oil. So I could even run into some other problems, like oil consumption or drivability issues with the variable valve timing or the cylinder cutout, things of that nature that run on oil pressure, right? So big difference between those. And not only that, though, even if I had the current book for the 14, well, I might not know that they revised that down from 8.5 quarts down to 8 quarts in a TSB. They use the TSB to send it out to technicians as to, hey, here's the new current standard. So actually they were putting too much oil in there. It was 8.5 quarts. Now it's down to 8. So for the example here, we got a 2013 Chevy Silverado with a 5.3 engine. This is 6 quarts and it's 5W30, right? And it gives you all the specifications down here, what to use. Do not use other viscosity grades such as 1030, 1040, or 1050. So just so you know that as well. And then if I flip over to the 14, we'll see the 5.3 liter engine here takes 8 quarts. So notice how it says 8 quarts, which is the correct amount. And then we have the correct viscosity here. It says, note, the engine oil capacity has been updated from 8.5 quarts to 8 quarts in reference to GM's document this thing. So they've changed it. Don't use other viscosity grades, they say again. But having that current correct information will help me in my maintenance function. It's just one or two button presses away on the scan tool, just right in the quick lookups menu, right? So that gives us fluid capacities. We also have reset procedures. So if I need to reset the maintenance light, however I need to do that, it's going to give me the reset procedure, right? So in this case, this says go to the driver information center and then hold the thumb wheel and then confirm yes, and the oil life will change to 100%. Easy enough. I can do that without a scan tool, but I also can do it with a scan tool, and there's other variables that can be set when I do that. So if I go up to where it says functional reset there, and we see service interval reset, it says the value will be set to 100%. The value can also be scrolled in 2% increments if a value other than 100% is desired. So just going through the driver information center, I will have 100% automatic. That's the default. But on the scan tool, I can actually go in and I can use this minus button in here and pull it back. All right, so we have 100% oil life remaining. I can go all the way down to 0 if I wanted to. Or another good example, maybe I want to change how many miles my interval. So let's say it's maybe an 8,000 mile oil change interval on this truck by default. So 100% means in 8,000 miles, it's going to go down to 0. But what if I wanted maybe a 4,000 mile change? So I can go down here, hit the minus button until it gets down to 50%, program it in as 50%, and then it will say, okay, now I only have 4,000 miles left until I get to 0. And then it would just go off that every 4,000 miles. So that's just one reason you might want to do that. Every manufacturer is going to be a little bit different when it comes to that. Just be aware that you probably have to go through and just read up on whatever the procedure is in order to reset it. But like I said, every manufacturer is different. We'll see a couple examples a little bit later when we go live on the tools. So that's oil change functions. Let's go to tires. So on tire functions, there's also a section in there inside the tool for resets, functional resets, etc. But this is on a 2018 Acadia, right? So this says what to do. When a low tire pressure condition is detected, the TPMS illuminates a low tire pressure warning light on the instrument cluster. A message to check the pressure in a specific tire displays in the driver information center. That is important. So each TPMS sensor has a unique identification code. The identification code needs to be matched to a new tire and wheel position after rotating the vehicle's tires or replacing one or more of the sensors. So if I go in and I do an oil change and a tire rotation, I got to reset the oil life, and I also have to relearn the sensors around the vehicle. It's a bunch of different ways we can do that. Once again, depends on the manufacturer. So actually, I think this is the, driver information center on this one. Tire learning active, and then you actually have to go and do a tire sensor activation tool around each tire. You start on the left front, and then you go around clockwise to activate each TPMS sensor in sequence. So that way it'll know, okay, well, this one was first. That one's got to be the driver's side front because that's what we told you to start, right? This one is on a 2018 BMW, and in this case, it doesn't look like we really need to do that because we can go into iDrive, which is their internal driver information stuff. My vehicle status, tire pressure monitor, perform reset, and then drive. And then once you drive it for a little ways, all the tires will light up and it'll go and it'll figure it out, right? I bet you there's still probably a function in there to write which one's left front, which one's right front instead. And then another example, an 18 Ram 1500, there's no reset procedure listed in the manual at all. So in this case, we probably need to do a functional reset. So we can go to functional reset, which is part of the vehicle using the scan tool. So of course it's behind security link too. And then in this case, our different tests, we have program each of the individual sensor IDs, including the spare tire. Now also note, If it's a dually pickup truck, you will need to reprogram all the tires, not just the, of course, because you got dual rear wheels on either side. So this would change accordingly, of course, to reflect. So if we chose left front tire ID, we'd hit continue, and then it tells us whatever the current sensor ID is. And then please make sure you have the 8-character sensor ID available. It can be found on the tire sensor label, or it can be found with some tire pressure tools. They'll pull it off for you. PID data, you'd be able to find that as well, at least what's programmed to the vehicle. Whether or not it's programmed in the correct place would mean the last person would have to do it. I'll hit continue, and then you'll see sensor ID. We hit edit, type in the sensor ID, hit OK. It'll confirm, hit continue, and then it'll say it's successful or not. So easy enough. Sometimes we got to program it in like that. Sometimes we don't need a scan tool. Other times we may need a scan tool and another tool as well. So in this case, this is on a Nissan. So we can do it either with or without this activation tool. So if I go into functional reset and I can see I have TPMS registration with the J tool, TPS registration without the J tool. So if I have the J tool, I can go in there and it will be something like this, right? We got a TPMS 4, we got TPMS 5, TPMS 3. Lots of other manufacturers have reset things for it as well. But we see you got the little Wi-Fi thing right here, and you got the little trigger tool there. So you just set it up against the tire, hit that, and it would trigger the sensor that way. Otherwise, if I don't have the tool on a Nissan, I have to do something else. So, and this is only if I have existing sensors. If I do a new one, I have to use that. But with existing sensors, I can set my tire pressures to whatever it tells me to set them to. So in this example, left front's 34, right front's 31, right rear's 29, left rear's 26. When I set it to that, it's going to put it in this mode, and then I drive it. And when the computer sees, okay, I see 34 PSI coming from this tire. So that way the computer knows, oh, well, that's obviously the left front tire. Right? As long as you put it in this mode and you set the tires correct. So key on engine off, select continue to start the test. The TPMS light will start flashing. Key on engine running, drive vehicle 5 to 15 minutes until it says test complete. Test fails to complete, exit the test and attempt to test again, following the instructions. Right, so multiple different ways to do that. Sometimes you follow the instructions on the TPMS tool. Sometimes you use a scan tool. Sometimes you just set the tire pressures differently and it rolls on like that too. All right, so oil changes, tire rotations. How about battery changes? When I change the battery, a lot of manufacturers, it says some, but it's a fair number of them now, use some sort of a battery management system. So it uses sensors, controllers, software to monitor the battery state of charge and the battery state of health. So it allows the vehicle to charge the battery depending on what the load is, what the state of health is, what the state of charge is on the vehicle. So it needs to be reset whenever a battery is replaced. Sometimes, even when I just disconnect the battery, I might have to do a reset on it as well. So a couple different ways, of course, to go about that, depending on the manufacturer. So in this case, we've got an Audi, 2016 Audi, and we have coding and configuration and battery parameterization. We go into coding and configuration. We can see the current code. We can look at configuration list and program a new code. So if I want to program a new code, it's a long code. Please write down the current code before you program a new code. This enables you to re-enter it if desired at a later stage. So if I need to re-enter it again some other time, I can do that. I'll hit continue. And then you have the long codes here. Now, what I would do, instead of writing them down, I just take a quick screenshot. Hit the little S button, take a screenshot, and then I know I don't have to worry about there's a lot of 3s and 2s and a lot of different things in different characters. So writing those down, you misplace it, might be a problem. So you'd simply go in, edit it, type it out, and then hit OK. Then there's battery parameterization. So when we replace the battery, we need to tell the vehicle what the specs of that new battery are. So in this case, it's you're going to plug in the amp hours, you're going to plug in the battery serial number, the first 3, and the last 10 of the serial number. I would imagine those are probably for factory Audi batteries, but I still go in there and hit program, and then it's done. So that's there's other ways of doing it depending on the manufacturer. Once again, you just have to follow manufacturers. Okay. Now about brakes. So many cars nowadays, they have electronic parking brakes. So you need to take them and put them into a service mode in order to service the pads, push in the caliper, pistons, and so on. So one easy way to figure out, do I need to do a reset? Do I need to do a relearn, is this service resets and relearns menu. So if you have a snap-on tool with intelligent diagnostics or a Veris Edge, all of those have this quick menu here. And this shows 55 things I can do on this 15 Kia Optima. The nice thing about how this is laid out is all of these resets and relearns are there in the tool anyways. They're just in whatever their respective module is. What this does, it gives me a menu that I can go through by job. So we can see, perform a wheel alignment, replace the brake caliper, replace the disc brake pads. So whatever job I did, I can go in here and say, all right, what are the functional tests? What are the resets and relearns I need? So let's say replace disc pads, for example. Go in there. It's going to give us some top repairs information, give us some TSBs, and it also gives us this functional reset menu. Going in there, it not only gives us the resets that we need, it also gives us any other functional tests that may be related to this. So we got pad change mode before and after change. So those are the ones we want to do. So we go to pad change mode before. Before changing the brake pad, this function should be performed. This will allow you to push the piston into the caliper by retracting the spindle nut with the actuator. So it retracts the electronic actuator, then I can push the piston back in. Execute this before pad change mode, change the pads, then execute pad change mode after. While the pad change mode is in progress, you'll see DTC 2750 and a test message is displayed in the cluster. Continue. So we got to make sure engine off, ignition's on, everything's correctly operating in the system. Parking brake released, brake pedal and parking brake switch while in the ignition is. Okay, so once we're done with that, it retracts it. Then I can go in, move the caliper, do whatever I need to do, push the piston in, replace the pads, change everything up. And then we had pad change mode. After change, we would need to go in there. And then engages the electronic parking brake after the brake pads are replaced. Do not use this function while the brake pads are being replaced. Please be sure to take general safety precautions for activating this function because we don't want to have it actuate and push the piston while we're trying to do things. Pop the piston out, cause some sort of damage perhaps. We don't want to do that. So continue. And then it gives us the same set conditions. It says keep stepping on the brake until the motor stops and the whole process is finished. So we need to step on the pedal firmly to make sure that the pads are as closed as they need to be. And then the actuator will push in and get to kind of a stopping. All right. And then last one we'll talk about before we head over to the tool is diesel functions. So a lot of diesel vehicles out there, and what's a maintenance function that I'm going to do an oil change. All right. So you need that TPMS. Yeah, you need that. Battery, probably, most likely. Brake pads, maybe. Diesel particulate filters, though, for sure. So I don't know, the last 10, 15 years or so, manufacturers, of course, been putting emissions reducing items on diesel trucks and diesel cars. Things like the oxidation catalyst, diesel particulate filter, exhaust temp sensors, DPF back pressure sensors, and hydrocarbon dosing valves inside the aftertreatment. So a diesel particulate filter, its job is to store soot. That's what it does. So it takes the bad stuff, filters it out, and lets cleaner air go out the back. So it's capturing all this soot. But what happens once it gets full? When I capture all this soot, what do I need to do? And in my mind, this is the thing that just doesn't make 100% sense to me as to why they do this. So we want to reduce emissions at the tailpipe as we're driving down the road. Sure, that's great, and I'm sure this does a bang-up job with it. But then once it's full, I got to clean it. So what are we doing by cleaning it? We're increasing the temperature so it burns, and then the soot burns and goes out the back of the tailpipe in a more concentrated manner than when it came in. So I don't know. I guess it must do something else magically that it's not causing large amounts of smoke to come out the back tailpipe. when I'm burning this, but yeah, it does. It burns quite a bit. So I don't know how you're reducing emissions. You're just concentrating it in one place and then just burning it. So anyways, that's what it does. And it works like this. So it's got a grid. It gets capped off on one end, and then the other end is open and then capped off on the back end. So when it goes through, kind of goes through the filter substrate, filters out all the soot particles that gather up in these holes. And then the non-soot particles go out. Problem is, though, they can plug up. They get full of soot, and then you'll have no flow. Now you'd either have to replace it in that case, or maybe you can regen it, or you replace it, or there's actually some places that repair them, recore them for less than buying a new one. Maybe that's an option too. But that's all plugged up. That didn't regen properly, or maybe it didn't never regen at all. There's a lot of soot in there. So to reset maintenance, in a way, we're going to do a regen on this. So passive regen is going to be when the DPF temps are high enough to burn the soot from the DPF without needing extra fuel. So that happens under high load situations. I don't know, maybe chugging up a hill or something. Active regen is going to be initiated by the PCM or by a scan tool. And in that case, extra fuel is added to the exhaust, and that raises the DPF temperatures to a little over 1,000 degrees. So we're burning the soot at 1,000 degrees. We're also adding extra fuel to do this. And then there's a park regen. So it's initiated by a dashboard switch, or it can be initiated by the scan tool, depending on the manufacturer. And that's used when attempts at active regens fail. So if we can't regen it, when we try to regen it, sometimes it's got to park, and then it'll do it then. Stationary regen. Some manufacturers, as this goes and as it clogs up more and more and more, they'll derate the vehicle. So it won't be, maybe I'm limited to 65 miles an hour the first time. Then maybe I'm limited to 45 miles an hour. Then by the time it gets really, really, really bad, maybe it'll make it so I can't go over like 10 miles an hour. And then at that point, you're going to want to get a tow truck, and you're going to need to regen it anyways. So that is just one more. I would say that's a good maintenance function. You got to be careful with these. You got to make sure you're clear of the tailpipe and stuff, because they get really, really hot. You want to do it outside. Would probably be best. Definitely don't want to do it inside with the doors closed. That's for sure. You want to do it outside. Everything gets really, really hot. You want to make sure nothing burnable around it. And then it just kind of goes and does its thing, right? So let's go live on the tool. Talk about a few other things. Now, this first one I found really, really interesting. As I was doing the research for this, I'm like, I know there's all these wacky off-the-wall things that manufacturers do. Just kind of going through and how they design their vehicles nowadays. So I found this 2016 Ford Focus. That's a pretty common vehicle globally. And the interesting thing with this one's the wipers. Wipers could be maintenance, right? Got to change the wiper on these. And I'll just say I never really, I guess, considered that this was a thing that they would do, but they do. Doesn't really seem all that unusual, really, but it's something you don't necessarily see all the time. But on these, they have individual, that's the back one. So they have individual wiper motors. One left, one right. No linkage anymore. So we got two wiper motors in there. Looks kind of just like a regular old wiper motor, except it only goes backwards and forwards. It doesn't just continually spin like they used to. Now, the thing about this is we go all the way down to the bottom for the install. It says carry out the windshield wiper motor initialization. Refer to windshield wiper motor initialization. So we click on that, and it tells us what to do. So you're going to go through in the scan tool using a diagnostic scan tool, place the windshield wiper motors in learn mode using the calibration. And then if you come down here, it's going to tell you, it's going to put them in a certain position, and you need to manually move them until they're 50 millimeters away from the A-pillar. And that's going to be like their stopping point. Here's the end of travel. So that way the motor knows how far to go. So if we were to do this, simply go into the scanner. And in this case, it's in the body control module. Functional tests. And we see wiper motor module calibration. This procedure places the wiper motor module in calibration mode. Perform this procedure if the wiper arms have been removed and reinstalled. Anytime they're removed and reinstalled. Doesn't necessarily, it's not the wipers themselves, but the arm. So if the wiper arms need to be removed for any reason, I replace the windshield, definitely got to do that. I got to remove the cowl for some reason. Maybe there's something under the cowl that I needed to get to, wiring harness or something like that. Or maybe there's something I can access easier if I take the cowl off. Got to remove the wiper arms for that, replace the wiper motor. Of course, that would need to get done too. So I got to put it in calibration mode. Before performing this procedure, make sure the following operations are complete. The windshield wipers have been installed correctly according to manufacturer's specifications. The battery has sufficient charge. A low battery voltage may prevent this from happening. And the windshield clean and dry. Make sure ignition is on, engine not running. Press the wiper washer switch down 3 times within 5 seconds. The wipers will swipe upwards to a pre-initialization position and stop. Gently pull both wipers out towards the A-pillar molding until the distance between the wiper arm where the wiper blade is mounted and the edge of the windshield is 50 millimeters. Press the wiper washer switch down 1 time, and then that'll set the current windshield wiper arm position as the approved position, and the wiper arms move back to the park position. So you got to do a few things. Note, if the wiper arms are pulled closer to the A-pillar than the specified distance during the step, do not attempt to move the wiper arms back towards the pre-initialization position manually. It could damage the motor. So don't do that. You can just reset it by going to intermittent then off, and then they'll go back to where they started, and then you just need to start the procedure over again. Procedure complete. Wiper modules in normal mode. Once you're done, you just hit that and it'll go to normal mode. Carry out a low speed and a high speed wiper test to make sure they park correctly and make sure they don't touch the A-pillar on high speed. If everything works the way it should, you're good. Easy enough. You'll notice other things in here too inside the body control module. So you got battery monitor system reset, TPMS training mode with or without scanner, some other things in there that you might need to do. So those some other maintenance functions inside the BCM. So remember how I said that menu makes it a lot easier, that service resets and relearns menu, because I don't have to go hunting for this throughout the vehicle. The resets are there. It's just, it makes it easier to find them. Because do I go into my windshield wiper control module? Do I go into my battery? Is there a battery control module? Is there a body control module? What do I need to do? All right, next one's a BMW 3 Series. So in this case, I'm going to go into engine, special functions, and then we see there's once again a lot of different things: battery replacement, fuel consumption display adjustment, reset adaptation values. This one was interesting too, the Vanos timing chain test. So if you suspect the thing may need a timing chain, the timing chain stretched out, something like that, so actually go through an automated test and see and measure and see how bad it is. You don't have to take it apart. Helpful. But in this case, the one I want to focus on is cooling system ventilation. So if I do anything with the coolant, drain and fill, as maintenance, that sort of thing, any engine work where I have to drain the coolant, I'll have to go in and vent it. So I got to bleed the system. I got to get all the air bubbles. So perform the following steps in the specified order to start the bleeding procedure for the engine cooling system. Important, this bleeding procedure takes about 12 minutes. Therefore, make sure a battery charger is connected. Switch on the ignition, switch on the low beam headlights, which prevents the vehicle from going to sleep. Both temperature selectors at maximum. Auto button on the air conditioning system, blower output to minimum. Fully depress the accelerator pedal for 10 seconds. Do not start the engine, and then the bleeding of the cooling system will start. So hit continue. Like I said, it takes about 12 minutes, and the coolant pump speed will change. So you can monitor that. It goes up and down as it's trying to bleed out the air. I'm just going to hit continue because I'm not waiting 12 minutes and it's not hooked up to a car anyways. Make sure you switch off the ignition, and then it said it was done. And then we're done. Easy. So yet another maintenance function. I need to bleed the cooling system. Crazy. One more. Let's go into this Volkswagen. 2018 Jet. And in here we have, way down here, this cluster. Okay, and then we go into service reset functions right here. So in this, you see there's a lot of different things that we can change inside this Volkswagen. So it used to be a lot of this was tucked away in expert mode, and you actually could do it with the car. You just kind of had to know what you were doing and you knew what you had to change. In this case, it brings a lot of that. We've been doing that for a few years now, bringing the expert mode stuff over to the regular mode to make it easier to find. So things like reset oil change interval, reset maintenance interval, change max days to next oil service, max mileage to next oil service, days sent. So these are all things that can be changed within this vehicle. So if I wanted to change my minimum mileage to the next service, I'm going to get an error because I'm in my simulator. But I don't know if that one works too. It just resets it, right? And that's the place it just resets. So I can manually go in there and change the mileage, the distance to the next service with that as well. And then speaking of expert mode, we do have another expert mode in here, which would be BMW expert. And that's a little bit different than Volkswagen's expert mode. I kind of wish they called it something else. But what this does is I can go in on, let's say, a 3 Series, and I can go to the instrument panel. I can go in there and it has condition-based service. So some of these vehicles have what they call condition-based service based on driving conditions. If I drive it hard, it's going to have me replace fluids and spark plugs and things like that a lot more often than if I was just driving kind of nice and easy. So condition-based service, and then we can see all these different things that we can change and we can modify. Whether or not we even want it to display engine oil percentage in percent, distance, time, or travel time. Do I display or not, or hide, or what? The spark plug interval, 56 kilometers. I need to change my spark plugs, right? So you can go in here and you can manually change this. The customer wants a different distance on their oil change before the oil change reminder comes on. You can easily go in there with the expert mode and do it. So a couple different things. And there's a lot more out there. I only got half an hour, so there's a lot more out there, a lot more variables between manufacturers as to what we can do. So hopefully you picked up a few little nuggets out of this of what you can use for maintenance functions with the scans. And with that, that is our time here today. So make sure you tune in for new diagnostic content every week. We will be premiering a new video every Wednesday at 7 p.m. UK time. So make sure you check it out on the YouTube channel. If you're watching, well, of course, you would be watching this on YouTube, but make sure you subscribe, thumbs up, ring the little notification bell so you know anytime we post new content. And it's youtube.com/SnapOnDiagnosticsUK. With that, time for questions. If you have any questions, just feel free. Once again, if you're watching this on a premiere, just leave it in the live chat and we'll answer those. Otherwise, leave a comment under the video and we will get to those as we monitor those comments as well. So I'd like to thank you for taking a little bit of time out of your day to learning a little bit more about how you might be able to be more efficient at diagnosing vehicles using some of the information that we've given you today. Hopefully we'll see you next week. Hopefully you can watch and see you on any of our other videos. Have a good week, have a good night, and take care.